Oh, October is not done yet, and it's ADHD Awareness Month. It's a time to highlight the realities that families truly face when you're raising a child or a young adult with ADHD and other neurodivergent traits.
A lot of parents feel overwhelmed navigating school systems, finding resources, period. Everybody does, and creating supportive home environments. But with the right tools, kids with unique brains can thrive.
Yeah, so joining us now with more is ABC's parenting expert, Bethany Braun-Silva. Thank you so much for being here this morning and bringing us this topic. Bethany, so at home, parents will do allow with their children to, work with them, but how can parents advocate at school so their students and the teachers can help?
Every parent faces that question.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as a parent, you are your child's #1 advocate, whether they have ADHD or not. So open communication early and often is really important. Scheduling check-ins with your child's teacher, and then also knowing your rights. There are things like IEPs and 504 plans. IEPs are individualized education programs. These are legal accommodations that provide maybe longer times on tests, or having the test read to your child, or even wiggle time, right? Time to get those wiggles out. And it's also important to remember that there's no right or wrong time to ask for these accommodations or start the process for evaluations. You can do that at any time. And then of course, collaboration really matters. When our kids see that we're working together with the teachers, with the specialists, then they feel supported and then more likely to succeed during that school year.
So they can see that process. That'd be really good. They do what we do, not just what we say, right?
Exactly.
Now, what about at home? You talked about it at school, but what can they do at home to help support the kids?
Consistency and structure. I could say this 50 million times. This is the most important thing. Structure and routines around homework, around bedtimes, around periods of transition when things might get overwhelming.
Yes.
Also breaking things into small steps. I do this with my younger son, and I'm not talking about 4 or 5 steps. I'm talking about 1 or 2 steps.
Yes.
They complete that task, they come back and get the next 1 or 2 steps. And then of course you're going to want to celebrate. Celebrate those small wins. Positive reinforcement really helps to motivate them, builds that confidence, and then of course, like you said, modeling that self-regulation, right? We want our kids to see how we move through periods of overwhelm, right?
And you need to say good job and congratulations, because they're having to overcome a lot of what's going in their head to do tasks that maybe the child right beside them can do so easily. So taking time to say, that was well done, what are we doing next? And it's such important parenting. Now, ADHD is something that we've talked about a lot lately, but there are parents who are just really finding out that they had it or have it, or they're dealing with it, or other neurodivergent problems. So what about parenting if that's your issue as well?
Yeah, our own Diane Macedo went through this as an adult. She was diagnosed as an adult with ADHD, and it's so fascinating. First of all, just because structure is hard for you doesn't mean that you're failing your child. You can outsource that help, right? Leaning on teachers, leaning on spouses to help you stay on track, using visual cues as reminders. And then of course, you're going to want to focus on predictability over perfection. Like I said, consistency and structure is so important. And then we're going to want to model that self-compassion, because our kids are going to watch us do that problem solving. They're going to watch us emotionally regulate when things are hard, and there are moments of big overwhelm and big struggle with ADHD. So if our kids can see us, not just how we, count those struggle moments, but how we move through it, it becomes very important.
Yeah, it feels like almost with everything, how you model yourself on the day-to-day basis really helps your child. Fantastic tips you gave us. Aside from the tips, what other resources are available for families?
I'm going to highlight 2. First is CHAD. It's children and adults with hyperactivity and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. This is a great national resource. And then understood.org. This is a nonprofit, but it's also a website. So it has things like expertly written articles. One of my favorite things on understood.org is this simulation where you can experience life through your child's eyes as a child with ADHD or dyslexia or a number of different disorders. So it really is, those 2 are incredibly important. And then I will say parent support groups are very important, whether they're in person or online. These are parents that have been there. They can offer tried and true tips. Sometimes navigating a child who is neurodivergent, it can feel really isolating. So we want to know that there are people out there who are going through similar things that can offer support and help, and that you are not alone.
Right, because your neighbors may not be going through it, and they may have children that are, moving through life in a different way, and you feel like, well, I can't talk to anyone about this. You don't understand what we're going through in our house. But there are so many groups, and online is so many places for you to connect with other parents who are doing the same thing.
So true.
Oh, it's so great.
And I wonder if that simulator also gives you an idea of where the genius comes from. From some, you know, if you're looking at things so differently,
absolutely right.
Right? And that, boom. Thank you so much, Bethany.
Thank you.
Bethany Braun-Silva, we appreciate
So
every time you
good for
join
all
in.
parents too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.